Okay, time being 7 o'clock, I'd like to call to order the Somersworth Historic District Commission meeting for Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. And the first order of business is the approval of minutes of the previous meetings from April 23rd. Do we have any motions or discussion? Mr. Mativia?
I would implore that the author who typed these up to give a quick once-over. There's numerous typographical errors, words that are not only just misspelled, but they're actually all the right letters, but just the wrong order. The word that, I'm not sure. There are just a number of them. Brooks stated that EH, I'm sure there was supposed to be a T there, and so on. Furthermore, on, I think it's page 11 of the 14, fourth or fifth paragraph down, where it says the word, the first word in the sentence, or paragraph rather, is bacon. Almost to the, not the last sentence, but the sentence above it, performing as the manufacturer intends it so even themselves. I'm not sure what was trying to be said there. If anyone could offer clarity in those words.
Bacon stated he has an engineering degree, that one?
No, Bacon segmental walls. All right, 3 sentences below the first sentence, far right side. Performing as the manufacturer intends it so even themselves.
So we have a motion to send
don't
this
know what
back
it
for
means.
correction?
Yeah,
Yeah, I would second that, because I don't, it seems like they're missing a giant piece of that.
and there's a few of these other words throughout
Mears?
that are just missing a letter or that type of thing.
I would just say that planning has taken on this additional task of taking minutes for the historic district, which historically has been done by the board. And I'm going to have a hard time going back to staff and saying, let's correct all these minutes. This is 14 pages worth of minutes. This was a lot of work. So if somebody wants to take on doing minutes for the board, that would be appreciated.
I'd be glad to offer my copy with the circles for simpler correction if that'd be object.
I'm going to proofread it and give it back to you.
There's not many, about 5, but they're like the word the is TEH instead of THE.
So-
And I do recognize the work that Richard.
It's a lot of work and it's much appreciated. The layout is outstanding. I'm not going to discredit the effort that went into it in any way.
So aside from the simple misspellings of certain words that are obvious, is it just this one correction that you're concerned with, or is there more?
There's a small typographical and that one piece of a sentence, which I don't quite understand, but I think it would be amendable that one of us just proofread it, circle some simple typographical errors, but approve these minutes under the condition that those typos be corrected.
I would second that motion.
I have a suggestion. Maybe if someone's going to go through and mark it up, that we can just present to submit that as the new revised minutes.
Certainly, we could certainly do that.
So can we table the minutes with that understanding instead?
Yeah, I'd feel better about tabling them for the corrections to be done, and
We could submit the corrections, and then that would be the minutes, and they could just be retyped, not retyped, but those corrections made, and they would then be the official minutes.
Correct.
That would be acceptable.
So do we have a volunteer for the corrections?
Proofreading?
Yes.
Well, I am no good speller here, so I only notice these read in the minutes, so if someone else would like to take on that task or just proofing it,
I can proof it. I'm sitting in court tomorrow. Not much to do.
that's not a good thing to say out loud.
I'm waiting for things to happen.
So-
I have downtime tomorrow. I can proof them.
So do
And if
we,
that would be acceptable to the planner?
Just tell me who to get them back to. Do you want me to proof them, scan them, and email them back to somebody? How do you want me
So
to
you
do
would
that?
bring them back to the next meeting to submit with corrections, basically.
Okay. Although,
Or circled correction, or identified corrections, or,
that's fine, except for that one section where we don't know what he said. I don't know how to.
I don't know what that meant. I
You
just
might
have
be
no
able to
idea.
watch the video of that recording, and if it can get better, great. If it can't, then it is what it is how I look at it.
I do not, I have time to circle things. I do not have time to watch a video to try and figure that out.
Tim, do you want to try to get that one since?
I certainly would work, I would do that. There's a word missing, and then added that word, it makes all sense in the world, but right now I don't know what it meant.
All right, so do we have an official motion then?
I motion to table the minutes until it's proof read and the corrections identified and resubmitted.
Fair enough. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? All right,
And
so
no
motion
offense
table
to,
passes.
no offense to George's wife, but these are way better than your wife used to do. Is she listening?
No, don't have to tell me that.
All right. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. Projects of minimal impact. Ms. Mears?
Yes, so 56 and 58 High Street in the Business Historic Overlay District, map 11, lot 213. Application to install a wooden sign on existing brackets was approved. 17 Highland Street in the Historic Moderate Density District, Assessors map 11, lot 55. Application for in-kind roof replacement was approved. 142A High Street in the Residential Business Historic Overlay District, Assessors map 10, lot 162. Application for in-kind roof repair was approved. And then 50 Prospect Street in the Residential Single Family A with Historic Overlay District, Assessors map 11, lot 50. Application for in-kind fence replacement was approved. It was a busy month for minimal impact.
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome. Next, we have public comments by visitors. Do we have anyone from the public that would just like to speak to anything not on the agenda tonight, just general public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to old business. We have 67 Elm Street, Somersworth LLC is seeking a certificate of appropriateness to construct a parking lot and retaining wall on property located at 67 Elm Street in the Business with Historic Overlay District, Assessors Map 10, Lot 174, HDC Case Number 10, 2025. Ms. Mears?
Yes, so the applicant did reach out. They're thinking about withdrawing their application. There was a suggestion about placing a vegetative wall up as an alternative to the blocks, and I'm just going to pass out a picture of this.
Yeah, I'll do it. You can keep talking.
Okay. And so it's not really clear under the guidelines on whether this could be approved as a minimal impact project, so I wanted to get the board's feedback regarding this. Obviously, the planning department would ask for a maintenance plan if they were going to construct something like this, but just wanted some guidance from the historic district on whether this could be approved as a minimal impact or whether this would have to come back for full board vote. If not, the applicant might withdraw their application, but this was an alternative.
So should we all weigh in on it and give our opinions of this?
The application's not going to be open up, but I guess I'm just looking for a decision from the board if whether they can submit as an amendment and it could be potentially approved administratively or under minimal impact.
Quick question
Yes.
before we get too far down this. I kind of look at this as somewhat of a hill, like a grade that would not be with normal materials, like just dirt, how I look at this. We don't make people come to us for grading, is that correct? Unless it's a retaining wall?
That's correct.
Okay.
So,
All right, I'll open it up to questions. I just wanted clarity on that.
So I have a question. We're being given two pictures. One is this, very long straight wall, and the other is this kind of curved, very different block wall. It does
that's
not-
just the material, and that I just printed this out. The applicant did not provide this. I just said that I was going to bring something to.
Yeah, if I may help, I believe the one without vegetation is literally that prior to it growing. The other one is after it's begun to mature.
So I guess the question is, there's no actual block material structure to this?
Right. It's like a medium in like a sandbag,
It
basically.
looks like a it's a sandbag texture. The internal, it's not sand, it's a medium that holds roots, I hesitate to use the word loom, but of that type of nature. The question that I would have had if this was proposed as an application, the examples that the plan of Mears has provided, one's terracing, which they can't do on that site because they would terrace beyond their property line. And they have actually applied for a 18-foot tall vertical wall without tearing it, because they don't have the ability to do that. I would need to, I don't know, I mean, there's more questions now, that's what I would have,
Yeah.
as to the structural integrity of an 18-foot tall wall of sandbags.
And I guess I would say I'd be concerned about the height of the wall too. If they have to terrace it, do they really have the room for that?
Well,
Where it
they,
comes to.
they would have the room to terrace it, but they would have to then encroach further on their own property to end up on the property line.
Yeah. And then I guess my other concern is, would there be, what if this doesn't grow? What if
Right,
what if
that's my
through
concern.
maintenance it becomes no
Just a
vegetation?
sandbag wall.
Yeah, so I guess I have concerns and questions about how that would work. I mean, if there's a maintenance plan or something, maybe that would cover that.
Yeah, but the maintenance wouldn't be under historic district's purview.
No, I-
So,
That's what I was gonna say.
And the downside of a maintenance plan is penalty for noncompliance. What do you do?
yeah.
I was gonna say, if this came before us, I would look at this similar to somebody proposing a hill or a regrading of their structure where there's no actual material like rock, stone, anything like that. I mean, there is gravel on some of these examples, don't get me wrong, but I don't know that we would have purview over this because it would be planting, unless they're removing something that's in our guideline, right?
I can agree with that, but at the same time, if you're putting these bags of medium, it is some sort of structure.
It's a retaining wall.
So maybe it wouldn't be minimal simply because you are building a structure.
And to the applicant's defense, they didn't provide these examples. That this might not be what they intended to show us.
No, the question is, do we consider this minimal or not based on the material being used, is how I understood this
I would not consider
question.
it minimal. I would consider this, based on the previous attempt at an application, that this is a retaining wall. But before us, I believe that the applicant is rescinding their application. They're taking it back.
So let me ask this, if they rescind their application, do they not get a parking lot? Are they doing it, like, what happens when they rescind an application to the wall that is existing
You
there?
got me. That's a
Do they get
planning
to tear
thing.
it down?
It stays as it is until they decide what they're going to do.
See, that's my question, is if they do this sloped wall, how's that gonna affect the parking lot?
It'll dramatically affect it. It'll take up spaces. Because they'll have to move into their own property line in order to make that grade. There's no only way.
I don't see how this height is gonna hold.
18 feet, so
Yeah,
that's what they
that's an awful
expressed.
lot for that type of,
And I did tour that site earlier today. The rubble wall that remains is really the back foundation of the old hotel. And the reason why it stood for as long as it did was really the flooring system of the hotel helped hold it up. With it gone, there's a dramatic amount of, it's called surcharge, which is pushing on that wall. And that's why you see those puncture holes now that are starting to penetrate through, because
I don't want to go too far down about talking about this particular site because this is not from the applicant. I just want to make sure, like, we need to consider this for across the whole district, right?
Yeah,
Like, if
I mean-
anybody came for this particular medium.
it wasn't that long ago where our rules were amended and approved to speak specifically on retaining walls moving forward. And that's,
I believe
Follow
there's
what
a
we
particular
approved.
block we were going after.
so anyway,
So from what I'm understanding, Tim, for you specifically, you're saying you still consider this a retaining wall, so you don't consider it minimal.
correct, anything higher than, I believe, 4 feet and by itself would be considered retaining wall.
I would feel like this isn't minimal, but honestly, if they can make this work, I like this a lot better than the last proposal. Like a head and shoulders, if they can make a growing medium, it'll look like a hillside, it won't look like cinder blocks. I like this design 100 times better than what they came before us. Obviously, it has to work and it can't just be dead sandbags, but if it's working, I like this design a lot better.
I mean,
You consider it, again, I want to kind of get away from that one thought, one plot, like, again.
I do consider it more than minimal. I want to talk to them about, is it going to be terraced? What does that look like?
yeah, I would agree. This is not minimal.
So is there anyone else that would disagree that it's not minimal, or should we just take
I
a vote
think
on this?
for me, I kind of agree with Tim a little bit where a height might be a requirement to consider it minimal or not, because like, for me, if terracing one, I would consider this more of a hillside, in my personal opinion, because we're talking vegetation, right? Like upkeep, that's all part of landscaping already. So maybe we would need to consider like what a height structure would be for a minimal versus non-minimal for this type of application.
So if I could aid this conversation and expand it a little bit away from this particular project.
That's why I'm saying I want to look at
Right,
it as
so we
others
can
too.
look at the property that was on Winter Street, which used a very short 2.5-foot cement block wall to create an area where they could park, a little parking driveway. And they came before us, it was discussed and approved as long as those cement blocks were then covered with some sort of natural stone or other medium of some sort of natural ability. And then the house gets sold after the blocks were put in and the stone covering never was installed. Through pressure from the board, through code enforcement, that stone eventually got installed. And that wall is only a couple of feet tall. So did it retain earth? The definition of what is a retaining wall? Is there a sloping grade where eventually it's not a retaining wall? Maybe further investigation on that would happen to be. But in this example that was found, both these are, one's not terraced, one's terraced, but they're certainly retaining walls.
And just reviewing our ordinances here, just to help shed some light on this, as far as projects or exempt activities, the only two that I see that would speak to this is landscaping that does not affect the current grade of the site, provided there is no change to the vertical structure, such as construction or alteration of walkways and patios, and planting or removal of vegetation, except for the case of removing a healthy or undamaged tree with a diameter larger than 12 inches, when measured 4 feet above the grade. So I don't believe it falls into either of those, making it not exempt. And then when you look at minimal impact, the fences are borderline walls. They're kind of like the earliest wall. I mean, just a straight up stone wall is really a fence when you think about it. It's not a retaining wall, but I don't see anything in the minimal impact that it falls under either. So then it becomes a major impact, which would need review by us. So I really do believe this would,
The difference between a stone fence and a stone wall,
one has dirt on the side, on one
yeah,
side.
one has a surcharge and the other one doesn't.
Okay,
Just
so
don't
I think
retaining
that's
wall.
pretty fair to say that it sounds very consistent that we're saying it's not minimal, basically.
So I
Alright.
guess back to the original statement that the applicant has rescinded their application. So it's off the table.
All right. Do we need to take a vote on this, or is the discussion
Withdrawn.
enough to?
Withdrawn.
Should we send them some indication that I mean, I feel like we all are more favorable to this proposal than the last proposal.
We need to see their new proposal. I've
Okay.
withdrawn the first one.
We need to see what they're,
And I-
that was just what we thought.
Or we could continue this and see if we can, they could amend the application.
Why don't we do that? Because I think we should send them a message, since we were all kind of uniformly a hard no on the last one, that we are open to this idea, that this is a better perspective, that we did say to them, please come back to us with something different, and this is different. And I'm not hearing anybody here go, my God, I hate this.
Well, I won't say I hate it, but I wouldn't have approved it, but anyway. If this
I will
is-
say, for me personally, I like the vegetation because we've seen what happens to certain walls of certain sizes, unfortunately, with graffiti or damage, and this would be very hard to graffiti, in my opinion.
Agreed.
You just wait a while, it goes away.
So I guess it'd be fair to,
You could spray paint the plants, I guess.
should we make a motion to continue it then? Would
Yes.
that be the,
I'll make a motion to continue it
date
and
certain.
invite them to come back and talk to us more about this proposal.
I suppose the motion would be to deny their withdrawal.
I don't know
don't
that we
think we can do
can
that.
I don't
deny a
know.
withdrawal.
No.
I'm reaching out, I don't know.
I think continuing it would be the proper.
I think
course.
it
If they're
remains
amenable to
tabled.
it, sure. If they say no, we still want out, then okay.
I think it just remains tabled as is until they come back or take it off, one way or the other.
All right, stays on the table.
Yeah.
Motion to keep this application on the table.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ms. Schoen. All those in favor of the vote to keep this tabled, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right. Do we have any other old business to come before the commission?
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
All right, moving on to new business.
I have a motion on new business, please.
Okay, Ms. Schoen?
I make a motion that we move item B, which is 27 Noble, to item A, just because I feel like that's gonna be a very easy, quick discussion. Let's get these folks out of here if they're here.
I will second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. So, item now A, Joshua and Lauren Scursy is seeking a certificate of appropriateness to install gutters on a property located at 27 Noble Street in the residential single-family A with historic overlay district, Assessors Map 11, Lot 6C, HDC case number 12, 2025. And Ms. Mears, do we have,
Oh, yeah, sorry. So the proposal is to add gutters to the roof line to help with the site erosion. The gutters will be located on the front of the house, the back of the house, and along the right side of the house. The 6-foot gutters will be over the sidewalk and out the door of the garage, and the 3-foot PVC shadow board will also be installed on the fascia. You should have all received the memo and the application, and this is ready for the board to discuss.
all right, and do we have an applicant here for that? If you don't mind approaching the podium here? And just state your name for the record. All right, do you have anything you'd like to add, or just, oh,
Can you just make sure the green light's on?
there's a button right there.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Joshua Scursy of 27 Noble Street. I do not have any specific comments besides the fact that my wife and I just moved up here about a year ago and are loving living in Somersworth. So thank you guys for having us.
All right,
I'm going to make this fast. This is a brand new construction. I feel all new construction should have gutters as it is. This is minimal. They're not going to disrupt a roof line. They're going to blend in like almost all gutters do. I would move that we approve this as submitted.
I'll second that.
Yep.
Yeah. Welcome to town. This was easy for
You're in.
us.
Thank
We're
you.
glad you like it. Enjoy our bakeries and our food, hang out.
We just spent the past 12 years moving around the South as part of active duty military, so I'm liking finishing my commitment back in my home state.
Thank you for your service, sir.
so,
Okay.
so just to move back to the motion for a minute, just a little discussion on it. I would agree, I feel that this is minimal, but when I read the guidelines, I didn't see it defined as minimal, so I didn't approve it as minimal. But obviously, it seems like everybody here is in agreement.
Yeah, I would agree that it doesn't meet the guidelines, it's minimal, but I will concur with Ms. Berry that this is,
No
it's been approved, motion to approve is submitted and seconded. I would concur and I would support it.
All right, any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Your gutters are approved.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thanks.
All right.
Did you turn that off?
Please.
Next for new business, item B is now Jeffrey Hughes is seeking a certificate of appropriateness to replace 2 windows and add a fire egress balconies on a property located at 142A High Street in the residential business with historic overlay district, Assessors Map 10, Lot 162, HDC case number 11, 2025. Ms. Mears.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The proposal is to replace 2 vinyl single-hung windows with casement windows with windows to match. The windows will be 24 by 48 inches to meet egress requirements, in addition to the two 3 by 3 foot fire egress balconies constructed of pressure-treated lumber to allow for 2 additional bedrooms. The location of the windows and egress balconies will be on the side and the rear of the building. The applicant did provide an application, and this is ready for the board to discuss.
All right, do we have an applicant here for this? If you don't mind just stating your name for the record.
Good evening, Jeffrey Hughes.
And do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just point of clarification, I included this in the application, but two potential options for window replacement. So if we want to meet fire code and keep the existing size of the windows, it would be replacing it with a 24 by 36 inch casement window to allow for proper egress. Otherwise, if it was a single hung window, it would have to be 24 by 48, which would require reframing it because that would be larger than the current windows. So either option I'm good with. I was trying to find ones that were most appropriate for the district, obviously, and the period of the home, but additionally provide additional housing for tenants.
All right. Start off from Ms. Berry.
I would prefer to keep the size of the openings as they are, so I'd be okay with the casement. My only question on that one, I know that you can get a singular line across to mimic a double hung. I would be a little bit more in favor of that, just to mimic the other windows on that same facade.
Yep, that'd be fine.
That would be my only note on that.
Mr. Mativia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I concur with Ms. Berry that I see these windows a lot. They're installed quite regularly for this very same purpose. And the majority of historic districts that allow this to happen will require that center mullion or mutton that goes across to be the same dimensionally height as the sash wood or the sash frame.
Yep.
So it's not just a single 3/4 inch bead, it's probably like a 2 inch.
Yep.
And it goes across. They're manufactured like that much for this reason. This is not an uncommon request for windows in certain districts. As far as the balcony part of this, I also support this. In this layout, this is the only alternative to have those upstairs rooms be bedrooms, is to either have the fire department agree that this balcony isn't needed because they're easily accessible by responding fire department apparatus, or you need this. So because it's on the back L of that house and on the side, be extremely difficult to get a ladder quickly up to that window. So this is his only alternative. We've done these before. Can't think right offhand where, but they're around. The only question I have is the dimensions. The frame expresses a outside dimension of 3 foot by 3 foot, but you're going to need to have the interior dimension to be 3 foot by 3 foot, so the size will be a little bit bigger. Other than that, I would approve this application nearly as submitted with the condition of that cross member in the casement window.
Mr. Pula?
I'd go along with this because it's on the side and the back. My only thing is gonna be the pressure-treated lumber being painted.
Yep, so I did put in there, because pressure-treated lumber obviously needs to shrink and dry.
Okay.
Take up to a year to do that.
Wow. Okay.
Well, it's up to you all.
I'd paint it in a couple of weeks, but that's just me.
It's
That's just me. That's just me.
But dealing with that on my own porch, I mean, I think if he's doing this summer, that means let's say he gets it done in October. Nobody, that's a bad plan. I think you need to give him until, if you want to be a stickler, give him till June 1 of 2026. And then it's a very clear,
Thanks, George.
thou shalt by June 1. Then the winter happens and it'll warp it and do all sorts of things to it, and he can paint it in the spring.
Yeah.
And just so I can chime in on this too, I know we have approved a number of these in the past. I mean, obviously, they're a safety feature that's needed. Something that I've said a couple times before, I wish we'd see more of them made out of metal. I get concerned that the pressure-treated wood will rot over time, and the metal would be more secure for a longer period of time. I know there's nothing that we can say to do that, but, you know, just
There's actually a
Other
great example of
consideration.
one on High Street, it's on the track side of High Street before you get to Depot. Well, it's not Deep, what is it, River? There's one on that side of the road that was an all-metal, metal grate floor as well. Came out awesome. But just so you know, there is examples of a metal one. They're more money, but
If you can approve it with either option, I'm happy to explore the metal one, and I'll try and get it. Obviously, I have to make sure that the framing aligns, the old home, and want to make sure that that can properly be secured.
yeah, the one that's on High Street, I believe the applicant manufactured it himself.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah.
More expensive option.
and I'm sure there's
Knew how
also,
to weld, so yeah.
I'm sure if you have a proper certified welder fabricator do it, you know, I'm sure it wouldn't be a huge job to construct these, I would imagine, but just another consideration thought I've had, you know, obviously you're proposing a wooden one, it's just something that's been in the back of my mind with these becoming more prevalent. You know, nobody needs them today, you need them sometime down the road, so it's the future thought that I have on that.
Yeah, if I can figure out a way to do that at a reasonable cost that wouldn't be exorbitant, I'm happy to do that.
Any other comments or discussion or motions?
I'd like to make the motion. I'll motion that the application be approved as submitted with the following condition, that the egress casement that is installed has a crossbar in the center that mimics the same dimensional requirements of the double hung that's next to, and that the escape platform be constructed as designed and painted by June of 2026, and that if the decision is to be made to be metal, I would probably want to see a quick revisit of that to see what its standards would be, but it would be rather a quick review. So my motion is to approve as submitted with the conditions that I just stated of the crossbar and painted by June 1, 26.
I'll second that. I like the metal ones too, but I didn't realize the guy made it himself.
I did in my research try to find them because that would have been my preference, and there's not a fabricator that just they're not just commercially sold unless you get like a large one like you see.
Do we call that a safety platform? What's the
It's
official?
Fire egress
emergency
platform?
escape or rescue platform.
There's somebody on Route 4 going toward Concord that has these different stairs and things out in there.
Yeah, I could.
I don't know who they are though. When I
Oh,
drive
there's-
toward Concord, it's,
There's a number of fabricators. There's one that has a shop behind Hall Brothers, another one off of Hubbard Road, Moulton's Metalwork. They all make these.
okay.
I'll take a look.
Now, that's just good information. I didn't know that either.
Thanks, Tim.
So you're, just to make sure I have everything here, that the egress casement window mimic a double hung window with a crossbar.
That mimics the crossbar
The
that
crossbar
mimics
mimics
the
the-
double hung window.
Right. In
So essentially, it
dimension.
looks like it's a double hung
Yeah.
window. It's a fake
just-
double hung window.
Had them in the wrong order.
Yeah.
So the egress casement window crossbar mimics a double hung window.
And they do look good enough that 2 weeks ago I tried to slide one of those up and open, and it didn't work.
And the emergency platform be painted within 1 year if constructed with
Yeah,
wood.
or
Correct.
to just say June 1, that way it's,
And do we have a second for that?
I second it.
All right, any more discussion on the motion?
If he wants to come back for the metal, we'd just see him again. It'd be under old business.
Fair enough.
Great.
All right, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Congratulations. All right, next on the agenda is Charles Kinney is seeking a certificate of appropriateness for repairs to a roof, roof trim, fascia, rail, and balusters on a property located at 23 Mount Vernon Street in the Historic Moderate Density District, Assessors Map 11, Lot 22, HDC Case Number 15, 2025. Ms. Mears?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing to repair and restore the entrance of the portico roof to look similar to the portico roof on Grand Street side of the home. The roof to be redone with rolled roofing material, rotted trim, fascia boards to be replaced with new wood. Existing rail and balusters will be removed and not replaced. This is a complete application, and the board should take up the discussion on this.
All right, do we have an applicant here for this project?
Seeing there is no applicant tonight, I'd like to move that we move to item D and come back to item C.
That's
I second that.
fair enough. Do we need a vote on that motion? You seconded it?
I second it.
All those in favor of that motion, raise your right hand. Opposed? All right, so now we'll go to agenda item D, that's now C, I guess. Samantha Clausen is seeking a certificate of appropriateness to repair portico and front door, replace garage door and kitchen window, and add gutters and bump-out basement door on a property located at 53 Prospect Street in the residential single-family A with historic overlay district, Assessors Map 11, Lot 109, HDC Case Number 17, 2025. Ms. Mears?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This proposal is to repair the portico roof, repair front door threshold, and replace garage door, replace kitchen window, and add gutters to the rear of the house and add bump-out basement door. And this is ready for review.
All right, do we have an applicant here for this project? Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Samantha Clausen. I bought this house about... Oh. No, that's okay.
Sorry, didn't mean
Okay.
to distract
No,
you.
that's all right. I bought this house almost a year ago, actually, and so this is where we are in the repair phase. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, fair enough. Anybody have questions or comments?
I have comments, not necessarily questions.
Okay.
So I'm excited to see this house be brought back to life. It's actually in a very well-known area. It gets a lot of traffic by it.
Oh, I've noticed.
yes.
I love the neighbors.
I love the round portico. I'm happy you're keeping it. I have no problem with the bump out added to the rear of the building, because I think it's actually, that is correct, it's to the rear.
It would be to the rear, yes. It's the height of the basement ceiling currently makes it impossible to put an actual proper door there without basically hitting wood from like the top of the door to where you would open it up. So that would be the purpose of that, to be able to install an actual size door.
It's actually very similar to what you would see on other buildings, and it's in the back of the property. I'd have no problem with this. I actually am in favor of almost everything on this application, so.
So are you gonna save the old door? What are you doing with the old door?
The old door is a very, very thin piece of wood with insulation basically glued onto it. It's I'm honestly shocked it's still standing.
Okay.
So with the original door, we would just seal over where that is and install a new door.
Okay. See me after I have some thoughts on your door. How's that?
Oh, okay.
Great.
Any other questions by members? Mr. Mativier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too am pleased to see this particular front approach receive some maintenance. It's been well overdue. I've been in this home multiple times in my career. I knew the residents who lived there prior, and it was neglected, to say the least. So I appreciate it. I'm glad you're intending to present that you're going to replace in kind or shape of that archway, because it would be important that it would stay. The listing that we have for our historic survey does mention that the integrity of this house is generally good overall. And it's partly because of these type of features that have, were originally constructed and are still there. So kudos to you for attempting to keep it. And that, moving on to the balance of your project, the garage door, changing it to an aluminum garage door with the same window pattern, I'm not terribly opposed to that. The garage door that's there now is wood with masonite infill. It has no historic character whatsoever, and I doubt there was even a reason for a garage at all until, you know, the car was invented. This house certainly predates that.
It did have a porch. I've seen pictures. It was a wraparound porch there, and then they put a garage on instead.
Yep. So I'm not really that opposed to the garage door. I don't think you could paint that aluminum to look discolored like the original, so we won't go there. The replacement of the kitchen window and the frame, which is in the rear of the house, I'm good with that, as well as the bump out in the rear to try to make some sort of more palatable basement entrance. But can we talk a little bit about the gutters? What's the material of the gutters?
So there are no gutters on there. From what I can tell, we found some pieces in the yard that looked like they were aluminum at some point. So there was something there at some point, and it was taken down. Not super clear on that. So
I can't really tell with the 86 photo at all.
Oh, you can't. Well, he's looking. I will tell you, I should have said, welcome to the neighborhood. I'm glad you're repairing this house. We all have some affinity for this house.
I was enchanted by it, just seeing the pictures. So I actually, my father is here. He's doing helping me with a lot of the repair work, and very excited for this project too.
That's awesome.
On the portico,
Yes.
for the sides, because there's not much left to it, there's almost like a bare structure of framework there now. What is the sides going to consist of?
We were going to use wood to repair the whole structure, or honestly rebuild at
So
this point.
is it going to be a wall, or is it going to be like lattice work?
That is interesting because there was nothing on the sides when I viewed it. I don't know if there was lattice
Yeah,
work.
we have a
origi-
picture of it with
Oh, you
lattice
do?
work. So
Yeah, do you want our?
Here, you
Yeah.
can take my packet. But there's some historic photos of the home.
I was going to say the historic photo actually doesn't have lattice work, and
No,
it would
and if you
be
flip
more
the page-
appropriate just for,
There's the
column.
1986 photo,
Oh, and there wasn't. Interesting.
so you can take that.
Yeah, one of the photos has lattice work, but the older photo does not have
I guess I hadn't
lattice
noticed the older one just being a column instead of
I
with
don't
no
believe
walls,
we were
basically.
planning on lattice work.
That's fine.
The lattice was actually installed somewhere around the early 90s. It was to create trellising. So it grew vegetation on it to make this kind of vegetative trellis to enter the home, and it was just horrible. to be honest
that's
with you.
what caused the rot.
Walked through
yeah.
that trellis often in my career, and it just
Spider
held the
haven.
moisture, and that's
That's
the condition it's in
yeah.
now because of that.
Yeah, out of interest of preserving, I don't intend to grow plants that close to the house.
So is the intent to just have columns then?
Columns, yes.
Okay, fair enough. I just wanted that clarity. I had-
Did you describe your columns of intent, or are you going to mimic what's there, just improve it?
We're mimic what is there. Although these pictures will be helpful, actually, in terms of the shape. Appreciate it.
Any other questions, comments, motions?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented with the condition that the front portico mimic the original style, design, and shape, as well as the columns of the historic photos. Meaning, don't put some Victorian Gothic thing up there instead. It has to look like the photos.
I will just make one comment dealing with our pressure treated. If you're going to use pressure treated, you've probably heard us all harping about thou shalt paint. George is very particular about thou shalt paint. So I would just ask that it be painted within, by June 1. I'm assuming you guys are working on this project now. This is your summer, or are you working on it in the fall?
Summer project, we'll be starting mid to late June,
Okay,
getting back
so-
into it.
So we would ask that it be painted by June 1 of next year,
Okay.
or sealed in some fashion if it's pressure treated.
Can I ask one more question to the applicant? What material are you thinking of using to create the archway?
That is a great question. We most likely pressure treated wood. Yeah.
Sawn or plywood or? Can you come?
Yes.
We're televised, so.
Yeah, and just state your name for the record
Oh,
as
my
well.
name's Marty Clausen, and I'm just dad. It looks like it was originally constructed, the arch is plywood, and then, most of the roof decking is just totally gone, so that's gonna have to be completely replaced as well. But, so mostly plywood, but we're gonna try to, I was hoping to sort of mimic, on the original siding of the house, there's a kind of a rosette, maybe it's a sun pattern that's right on the house itself. I was trying to mimic that on the front edge. So if we make the arch out of plywood and I'm not really describing this very well.
No, they
I
can
think
see
I
it. There's
got
a
it.
sun pattern if you look at the photos.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Right,
Tim, you gave yours
the
away.
idea was try to mimic that.
You're
and-
trying to pull that sun pattern forward to the gable end of the archway.
Exactly. That's the plan,
Great.
so.
And roofing, what's it gonna be roofed with?
Well, we talked with we had a contractor, you may have noticed there's been some work done because the entire front sill of the entire building was rotted out and had to be jacked up and replaced last summer. And we talked to the contractor that did all that work. Originally on that arched roof, they were cedar shingles, and he does not think that it can handle the runoff from the roof, so he suggested that we use the same color of asphalt shingles that are on the main part of the roof, so it'll handle the.
But you're putting gutters on.
What? No, the gutters were only for the backside of the house. So you wouldn't. There originally were, I believe, wooden gutters that are still there, but they had a new roof put on, and they just roofed right over. I think they must have failed at some point, so that. We didn't want to mess with the front of the house. The gutters are only for the back side of the house because a huge amount of runoff, which caused an entire wall to rot out and have to be replaced.
So asphalt shingles at a certain pitch is not allowed? So at some point, you're going to be below that pitch requirement?
Right at the very top.
Yeah.
We'll have to work through that, yeah.
So we'll need to know, though.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and if it's, I don't know, I mean, there's numerous product that could be thought of from metals, coppers.
That copper is what
For an approval or a motion, it might be better to say what you would not be in favor of, so they wouldn't have to come back, in my opinion.
I don't think legally by state law, that he could use asphalt shingles on that pitch, because it'd be contrary to the adopted state building code, so,
On the portico, you mean he'd have to actually
Yeah.
create a higher pitch, almost like,
and we don't want that, so there needs to be some thought of what that material will be.
How about 90-pound paper?
All I can say is that asphalt shingles is not allowed underneath
right.
it.
Right, but I don't want to make them come back if basically we only have one that we would not, right? Like, that's not our law. It's more of I would not allow for plastic, right? Like, that's what I'm looking for
I
for
mean,
tonight.
we could, as the board, approve the asphalt shingles, and then the code enforcement say you can't do it. So where are we then?
That's where we could say they can use what is allowed per spec, except for,
And I don't have a problem with almost anything there.
Can they rubber roof it?
By code, yes. Would we allow that? That's the question then.
I would say because this is a round, very untypical archway, I'm not going to say no to almost anything as long as it works.
I mean, copper would be wonderful. It's also super expensive. Like,
So if I may suggest, and then it could be rubber, and rubber requires a kind of more proud, exposed drip edge. And the drip edge, just that, could be copper.
well, that would be really pretty.
It would look good.
Not that we're telling you you have to do that.
I was just going to say, but
we're trying to give
for
you
motion.
I'm just throwing that out
Right.
there because I know asphalt won't work.
So I guess my question to you is, you're asking what they want to use, but you can't come up with something. So what my question for your motion, was there a reason we're asking? Because you were going to say no
Well,
to something or no?
As for our motion, I go, wait a minute, what are they doing for roofing? So I thought more of they should have asked better questions.
So maybe we need to say, we will approve anything code enforcement approves for the motion?
What would the applicant like to present for roofing?
It sounds like they're struggling with, I mean, this is a really gargantuan project if I get that for you guys. This is like, this would be great to get done. We are kind of DIYing this. Let's see what we can create. And you really probably haven't thought as far as the roofing. You're thinking like, let's do this star pattern and let's fix these rotted boards. And
Right.
you haven't gotten that far is what it feels like. So
Well, and that's why I'm trying to get to, would there be anything we would say no to?
sounds like asphalt roofing.
I would say no to asphalt roofing because I know it wouldn't pass.
Well, and that would also probably shake roofing too, right? Slate roofing maybe, but where could they find some slate?
I'd have
But
to
you wouldn't get
refer
it
to
to
the
do that.
shake industry. I'm very familiar with the asphalt industry.
I don't know how they would get slate to do that curve correctly.
Oh, slate would never work.
Yeah. So
So-
that's where I'm going, where I'm trying to help you say if there was
So
something where
they're almost
anything-
forced to use either metal or rolled roofing.
Some sort of metal roofing or rolled roofing.
I guess, does anybody here have opposed to either of those choices?
No, and maybe that's what we can say. You cover it with either approved, city-approved metal roofing or rolled roofing, and rubber may be your best, unfortunately, rubber may be your best choice.
Easy enough?
Does that work?
So is that a friendly amendment to the motion?
Friendly amendment to their motion, they can use city-approved roofing, whether it be rolled roofing or a metal roofing, as long as it's approved by the city. Because in theory, they could lead flash it, right?
You good?
I mean, a little
Yep.
weird, but you could lead flash it.
It'd be more expensive than copper. Way a lot more too.
Well, you know, they could maybe stone roof it, right? They could put little stones all the way across the top. It would be a little heavy. You'd
So do we
to
have
support
the
that.
friendly amendment to allow anything other than,
So, as I have the approval worded, is approved with the condition that front portico mimic the original style and shape with columns to support the roof, and the roof may be rolled roofing or metal.
Yes,
I'd agree to that.
Any
I
other
would agree with
discussion?
that.
Because it's very, and it wouldn't matter what metal.
Hmm.
Copper,
Well, it just says
tin,
metal.
whatever. Metal.
Metal.
I'd agree to that.
All right,
So that's my motion.
all right, and
I'll second that.
you seconded that?
Yeah, I'm
So
thinking aluminum. Can they get an aluminum, you know?
that's still metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that works. I'm trying to,
Yep.
I think these guys are like jumping off and sorry, I'm gonna be walking by your house a lot just to see what you're doing for fun, because I think it's great you're doing it.
All right. Any-
Honestly, I think it's great you're doing it.
Thank you.
Any more discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Congratulations.
Can I ask one question?
Absolutely.
Since it just came up, and especially listening to you talking about the pressure treated. So the deck in front of that front door, which is gone because we had to do a bunch of work below it, that was originally 2x6 pressure treated wood, which I was originally planning on just putting that back.
You can, you just have to paint it.
Sure. Well, so is there something that is, do you like the look of Trex or something? Or is that a bad idea?
These guys have approved Trex all over the place.
Yeah,
They're fine with Trex most of the time.
That would be
We don't
okay.
like vinyl siding.
Okay, yeah, that's not gonna happen.
It's really where we're at
So we
lately.
went, it's small, so the Trex, it wouldn't be that expensive. Instead of, then we don't have to worry
Right.
about painting it.
Right.
If you're going to do something like that, we ask that you kind of window frame it. I don't know if that's the right word, so you don't see
Picture.
the picture frame it. Thank you. So you don't see the raw edge of that where it's, you see actual what looks like wood, mimicking wood.
Oh, that's easy.
And then if that picture frame, there are two kinds of that Trex you buy. One is sometimes grooved for a hidden fastener, but the edge ones, if you use the picture framing and use the grooved ones, then it looks even worse. So make sure if you are picture framing it, you have the solid one for the picture frame, and if you're doing hidden fasteners, the grooved ones in the field, if you follow me.
Your lumber person, if like you're going through Middleton, or a local lumber yard will have that discussion with you if you bring that up to them. You can tell them you're with Historic District or you're dealing with that, and they will be like, oh, we know who you are.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You did have a question.
You guys
about
can
the-
come back for advisement anytime you want, you know.
Okay.
If you're like, we will talk to people about, this is what we're thinking without a formal application if you want to come back for advisement.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
All right, so,
Welcome to the Hill, more importantly.
all right, moving on to the next order of business is Charles Kinney is seeking a certificate of appropriateness for repairs to a roof trim, fascia, rail, and balusters on a property located at 23 Mount Vernon Street in the Historic Moderate Density District, Assessors Map 11, Lot 22, HDC case number 15, 2025. Do we have an applicant here? Perfect. And Ms. Beers, you already gave the info on this, so we'll move right into the applicant, if you don't mind just stating your name for the record.
My name is Paul Mackey, representing Charles Kenny. What I would like and to know is protocol. I don't know if I wait for you to tell me.
If you don't mind, just give us a summary of what the project entails, and then we'll open it up for questions from the board to discuss the project further.
What I'd like to do is remove the rotted 16-inch tall handrail that is gaudy and falling off the portico roof and the balusters, and re-roof the portico, leaving the ornate structure of the portico as is. So what I did was drove around the up and down Mount Vernon Street and over on Grand Avenue or Street, and looked at housing in the area for any handrail that mimicked this.
I have one of these houses, we don't have them. Yeah.
There is none, not any. So what I was hoping to do is just put a regular rubber roof on this portico, and that's all I was hoping to do.
Well, it sounds like you're gonna repair the rotted stuff around it too, because it's
Yeah,
not just
there's
roofing, there's rotted
crown
fascia on the front of
It's
it.
fascia and crown mold. So I was just going to bring that up to like kind.
Okay, exactly the same, you're not shifting.
Exactly. Nothing.
Where are you gonna find the router bits? Just asking the question. Are you gonna do wood, or are you
This-
gonna do?
This crown is actually available.
Oh, good. Okay, you found that.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yep.
I have one of those, so I'm
Very
sourcing
nice.
now.
Yeah, I've done these in the past. And so bringing it to Charles's attention, I told him that a permit may be in store to do the work, even though it's only a 2-foot by 7 feet wide roof. It still would draw attention doing the work there, and I didn't want to go behind anyone's back by doing the repairs. So anyway, I just wanted to remove the balusters and the handrail that are up there so it looks the same as the other roofs that are on the structure. There's 2 other roofs on the structure, and also to match the houses in the area.
Ms. Berry?
I'm happy you're wanting to repair, what's there. I'm in agreement. They try to do a Juliet balcony is what it looks like to me. It's not appropriate for an Italianate portico. I agree with that. It looks like they probably were having people climb out that window or do something, and they were trying to make it look a little bit more, I don't know, substantial, I guess. I think would be appropriate to remove that and go back to original, little bit of a hip roof or a flat roof, depending on how that shedding is.
Yes.
So I'd be in favor of this.
Mr. Mativia?
I'm in favor of having the maintenance and repair, but unlike Ms. Berry, I'm not a fan of having those balusters removed and discarded. It's the only application, or I'm sorry, packet that I can recall, and I've been on this board a very long time, that's integrity is 100%. I've not seen that in an integrity classification prior, and I would tend to say that the significance is of the well-maintained example of Greek revival and Italian aid, and this is done by a professional as recent as 2007, so he did not discount or comment on having those balusters as some sort of degrading feature at all. So I would be opposed to having those removed and would support mimicking, replacing the trim and all of that with like-kind material and having these balusters replaced. So that's where I stand.
The applicant like to respond to that at all?
I've been a builder for 52 years in the Midwest, out in LA. I was GC in the Midwest, out in Los Angeles, and here. And this isn't a common portico roof. It is an old, very old style. I've seen it probably on 2 separate houses in the Midwest that were from the early 1900s. And there is no traffic on the roof. The whole structure is going to have to be removed to roof the portico, and the metal that is up there is in need of replacing, and the balusters that are up there, what's the purpose of keeping it? Because there isn't any homes anywhere who back in the years they may have had those, but they've all been removed.
The fact that it stands alone, it may be a feature. I'm not really thinking a consideration of, well, because the neighbors don't have it, I shouldn't. That'd be my take.
What I did.
These balusters are not something you just go to the store to buy, but they're available. They can be made. I've seen them made. My career, I've witnessed them being manufactured. They're around. They're not prevalent in this neighborhood, but we do have an example of it. So that's where I stand.
I went to 9 different homes with addresses with this type of a portico roof. And in the past, if it was 100 years ago, I have no idea, but they look like they could have been this type of a handrail, but it doesn't pass code because it's only 16 or 18 inches tall.
Code doesn't matter with the historic features, so that's fine.
Very good. And it also is hindering the structure of the roof.
Well, it may have been there since 1840. I don't know that it hasn't, but it's been there since 1986 for certain.
My concern is, where do you want this to go from here?
We still have discussions to do.
All I'm willing to do is replace the fascia crown and put new plywood, remove the metal that's up there, and it's a very shallow hip roof, and then just put rubber over
Right.
it.
And that's what your application explains, right?
Yeah, so it's very, straightforward. And as you had mentioned earlier, a proud drip edge around.
A rubber roofing would have one.
Correct. This is what I would propose to do. And that way it'll match the rest of the house. There's 2 other roofs with this type of roof on it. And this one here is the only one out of place.
I'd be curious where the other board members fall. I don't think that it was an original Italianate feature. Italianate porticos were added to houses over years to add those features over time. The survey does not specifically call out the baluster. It does call out Italian portico. But I'm curious where the other board members fall, because we clearly have 2 different definitions.
I'll chime in and say that, it is rare that we get a house that says nearly 100% integrity, well-preserved, maintained examples of Greek Revival plan Italianate stylized house, which, it's not unusual to see some of these styles added later, which maybe this was added later, but it is a feature there, and certainly everything that this survey looks at, the only thing that was not a character-defining feature was the small porch, the screen porch on the rear of the L. Everything else is character-defining, so, it's unfortunate to see houses lose features such as this. Little things like this can make it stand out, so I kind of want to lean with Tim on this, that, it's been there a long time. It's kind of a feature. It's identified in this. It mentions the Italian stylized feature of it. It may be the only one in the neighborhood or even the district. That just makes it that much more unique, if you ask me. But again, I'm just one of the bunch of us up here, so.
So I
Michelle?
have obviously the Victorian on High Street that has a very similar portico. What I was been told is that there was one craftsman who did all of these things in Somersworth. So we all have the same balusters, we all have the same plasterers, and I have
Probably true.
a very similar portico on the front of my entrance that if it had one of those, it's been long gone. There's no sign of that. And in fact, I'm going to ask him where he's getting his trim, because I need trim replacement on the front of mine, and it looks like it's the exact same trim, which would again support, whoever was in town was doing all the same things. I'm torn because I feel like this is an interesting feature, but if in fact it was a later add-on, our standards suggest that we want to get rid of add-ons and bring things back to what they should have been. And I'm kind of tempted to say, none of the other houses have this. Maybe this is what it should have been. And somebody, threw a sticker on it at some point because they thought it looked fun, and it really shouldn't have the sticker, which is the balusters.
Or could it have been that the other houses had this feature and those were removed?
And that's my house is a straight up Victorian, so this is an Italianate, but I'm walking around town, I don't see other houses that have these. I can go either way. I'm not, oh my gosh, this has to be saved, because I'm not really sure that it was original to begin with. Maybe, and there's no one we can ask. The sad part is there's no house doctor that we can say, hey, can you date this material and tell us when this came, right? We don't have that option. We don't have that province as a board to say, can we date this before we say it can go?
Well, we may have photographic evidence that's not contained here, not sure.
I think I have one. don't hold me to that, but I think I have a couple of them.
So speaking is
From
Mr.
this
George
side.
Poulin, who's one of the directors of the the museum, It's not, we're the historic district.
So your
The historic
house is,
museum.
this house is 1860, 1850, 1860?
Yeah.
I didn't get a date when it was built.
That's what it says, 1850 to 60.
Okay, so without looking, that's what, okay, so it's a little earlier than mine.
It's
mean-
actually 1840 to 1850. It was on the 1851 Sanborn map, but that was the earliest visual.
This
Would
by
you be
far is
opposed to us
original.
tabling this for a month and letting us look for pictures to just see what we can find before we decide?
Excuse me, I didn't hear
Would you be opposed to us tabling your application for a month so we can look for historical pictures to see what we find? And that might help those of us, because I think what you're facing, to be honest, is a split board on this. You're gonna have some members say keep it, and you're gonna have some members that say don't keep it, and that's not necessarily gonna work out for you. And I can't predict that, who's gonna vote what, but if you gave us another month and George found some pictures, then we might be like, okay, it wasn't there, take it away. Or, oh, wait, it's on the, we have a picture from 1890 and it's there.
Well, if the question is if this is an original handrail, it's definitely not. It isn't original.
It might not be original, the particular handrail, but is that style and design original? It may have been replaced at another
I
point
don't
in history.
I wouldn't, I would have to pull from, say in the Midwest where I'm more familiar. I'm not originally
Right,
from
so this isn't Midwest, and we may have historical evidence to help
I don't know.
solve the questions.
I'd just chime in and say, it's clearly a Greek revival style building. Looking at the building, the wide corner boards,
It is.
the triangular feature that the roof has. I'm sure, I don't really feel that is original to when the house was initially built. I will agree that.
Yeah, it isn't. And
Is it
the
100
two
years
roofs
old?
that
Yeah,
are
the
flat.
portico was added later
Yeah.
as styles change. That
Yeah.
happens a lot. It's just
So
whether,
I guess the real question is, do we let them revert it back to original, or do we say this is still a distinguishing feature, it should stay?
I'm going to lean on
Whether
the
flat,
on what the survey said, where it's near 100% integrity. I've not recalled seeing that. And if we remove an architectural feature, are we then by default diminishing that? I'm not sure we do.
well,
But
we
are
were
we?
at a meeting recently where it says, is that architecture feature adding to the significance of the item? So I guess that's the question in this particular instance. Do we consider this a defining architectural feature that was added? This little.
It's a pretty significant feature.
Well, to me, the significant would be the portico itself with the Italianate, not the little bit of added railing across the top that did a Juliet balcony that actually screams other additions to me, where I've seen where people were trying to make it more grand and they would make those like widow's peaks on the top. That's what that looks like to me that they were trying to add. But again, without having photos or history, to me, that looks like they added a feature, then they added another feature, and then another.
Exactly.
But
And
I
I'm
just
on-
don't
For
know what
this
the board is.
conversation, I can say that I've designed probably 8 or 9 homes in my career that this was a feature of desire, this very same short baluster above a front entry door. So it's still kind of being wanted. Whether it's an historic feature in this house, maybe we'll wait to be seen.
I'm just Googling, and some of them have it, some of them don't, honestly. I'm Googling Greek revival portico, and some of them have the balusters and some of them don't. But I'm not finding anything that's old that is this particular, like, I'm not finding an exact match, honestly. They were different, there were.
So as our discussions moved along, you know my position. What's say the chair?
So the other two flat roofs that are on the house don't have this. And this looks out of place. That's all I was getting at.
We're not attacking you, sir. We're charged with this board to try and
Sure.
not lose parts of our town that are of historical significance.
That's why I was hoping to maintain all the structural ornate framing to do with the beautiful integrity of the roof. And that's what I wanted to maintain, because the underneath is what really gives it the character.
And we're not opposed to the repairs of that. The question becomes, do you end up having to put the balusters back? Because you're gonna have to take them off to fix the roof anyway. So it's coming off. The question is, do we ask you to put them back up?
Or facsimiles thereof.
Or facsimiles, right? Like pressure treated or extruded plastic or whatever that stuff is that's
So
happening now.
aside from the,
AZAC.
Well, what's funny is you aren't bringing it back to its original integrity if you replace it with plastic. It's not wood,
No,
because you're going to mimic what's there. And wood is wood, plastic isn't wood. So we aren't restoring an authentic look.
Agreed. We're restoring a look.
Yeah.
And and unfortunately, that's
is-
where we're at with some of this. Because if
that's
we
what-
said to you, thou shalt restore,
Okay.
you're looking at a lot of money to do it authentically. So a lot of times lately, people are coming and we're saying, you can use AZAC, you can use, it's more about what does it look like on the outside, even if it's a fake facade, really, and it's plastic.
Well, Charles may have, as you know, Charles, probably. I believe he sat on this board. And he probably has a history to do with this. I have no idea. I wasn't given the history of the home. I was asked to restore his roof to keep the underneath from being rotted and falling apart.
And we are not maligning you, we're respecting you. We're asking, I guess, if you want to give us a month to really think about what we want.
so here's another consideration. We could always have a motion made. Chips fall where they may based on the vote. This would allow them to, move on because, we can debate this all night. None of us are going to know here tonight which way it really is. I think the best thing would probably just be to have someone provide a motion and see what happens. I mean, I do see both sides of it. I'm really on the fence too, to be honest, but.
That's why I feel like I'd like to see what pictures George has. Because if it was added in 1880 or 1890, I would feel different than if, 1880, 1890, it's blank and we see a 1940 picture and somebody popped this on a house in 1940.
Another thing to consider is this applicant is proposing to reconstruct that roof structure, the portico, aside from that, with all the feature that it does have currently.
It's
which,
beautiful.
Too many times we have people that just want to remove stuff and never bring it back. So there's always that consideration as well.
I'm not ignoring it. I'm just trying to find an example if we could find one. But yeah, all the ones I found, when they have that feature, it's because they have an actual balcony above.
Right.
Or an actual Juliet balcony. So
And there is no door above there. It's
No,
only
there
a
isn't.
window.
It's a window. Otherwise, it is a simple flat roof from Italianate. So
Go for it.
Motion to approve as submitted. I can say no to my own motion.
Wait, your mic's
Yeah,
not on.
I will say second then.
We just had a.
Do you have your mic on?
Mic on.
Motion to approve as submitted.
I will second that.
Any discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed?
Oh, I want more information.
Okay, so that's a
Split.
3-2 with one abstention, is how I counted that.
So it was approved.
No, hold on. If there was an abstention, do we have 3?
We had 3 voted to approve it,
Those who approve,
Oh,
raise
I'm
your
sorry. I
hand.
counted wrong. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Ignore me.
2 that voted against it, and 1 abstention. So that motion would pass.
I didn't count myself. I just counted across for me. I can't count tonight. I'm sorry.
I don't even track with you. So I don't know what you just did.
I think that
So-
you just won. I
Yes,
think.
yes.
The motion passed
Your
as you
motion
presented
did
it, so
just-
you can
Okay, so I can
do
go
as-
ahead and remove the balusters and put a brand-new roof on?
Yes.
And leave the decorative stanchions underneath
Yes,
as
you're
is?
Right, you gotta
submitted of the
mimic what's
portico.
there,
Exactly.
except the railing.
Except for the railing around the top, that creates that Juliet balcony look. That can go, everything else, as you stated, you're redoing and creating. Yes,
Yes, underneath stays,
correct.
and the crown and the fascia
Correct.
are in need of being
All-
replaced
yep,
because
in
it's
kind.
falling apart.
In
Yes.
kind.
And the handrails that are actually putting pressure on it is causing the fascia and the crown to crumble.
Yes, so those you can remove. Those are the only things we're allowing you to remove. Everything else we want you to replace or put back as kind.
As you presented it, basically, everything above the roof material would be removed. Everything below would be rebuilt as is, to sum it up as quickly as I
Yeah,
can.
and the underneath is actually in good shape. It's not rotted. The roof has protected the elements from rotting the decorative artwork, the woodwork. It's just the fascia and the crown is the only thing that really was a factor with the weather.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Is
You're
there?
welcome.
You get a permit in
Yeah,
a couple
the
days.
planning department will issue you a certificate of appropriateness, and then a building permit will be issued at the same time. So just be in touch with the planning department. And
If
then-
you,
Very good.
case is closed,
Yeah.
I wanna show you this photo.
I had photos and my phone died. I was at my daughter's concert tonight at TCCA.
Man,
This is a unique structure and,
that's AZAC.
yeah, and this isn't.
No, but, I mean, anything can be made. But
Oh, yeah,
you got your case, so.
Yep.
you're
yeah.
correct.
So we got to move on with the rest of the agenda for the night. But thank you. Have a good evening. So any other new business before the commission?
What's that?
Any other new business before the commission? Seeing none? Move on to workshop business. Do we have any workshop business?
Yes, we do. I have gotten the 2 new plaques. I am going to try a new way of painting and sanding to see if I can get it just to be a little bit better. I will be calling another workshop to order once I get that done, and then we can hopefully move forward with opening up applications and getting this program up and running.
Did you have any conversation with that one applicant we had in here before the?
Not yet.
I was wondering.
If I ran into a problem with this particular way I'm trying, that I'm going right over
Right,
and
you said he had a way, and I didn't understand what he
Well,
meant.
he had a film, basically, is what he had talked about, which is an option in some cases, but it's usually done before you carve it, and then you paint while it's still on.
Right, then you peel it off.
Right, we don't have that, so it's one of those, I'm just trying a few things, but if I still run into an issue, I will be headed over to get some feedback.
And on that, we have a small additional collection of plaque material. Not enough really to make the trip, but it is being collected, and there are some.
All right, whenever you have enough, just let me know. Either I can drop it off, you can drop it off if you want. One of us will.
Okay.
Any other workshop business?
I
Uh,
just have something.
Were you gonna talk about, the camp? Is that a workshop thing?
Yep. So I actually have 2 items. I did provide you with a sample ordinance change that is being proposed by the city council to amend chapter 19 zoning ordinance section 14 historic district by adding exempt activities. And that would be section 1914 D2F, exempt activities, the construction of any new building or structures that lie within the commercial, industrial, historic overlay district. Before the planning board undertakes an infill development application, the applicant shall make the application on forms provided in the Somersworth Department of Development Services to the Historic District for review and comment. The planning board shall review and make part of record any comments or recommendations for the Historic District Commission with regard to the request for infill development. The Historic District Commission shall have 35 days after the HDCA accepts the application as complete to make comments or recommendations to the planning board. Comments or recommendations from the HDC shall require a majority vote. If no majority can be reached, the application will move forward to the planning board after an allotted 35-day period. So this was brought to City Council. I'll let the mayor speak to this, but it's in the first reading, and I just wanted to let the HDC know. It has been reviewed by the city attorney, and there was a definition that needed to be added for infill development. So I was asked to look up a definition for that, and hold on, I do have that somewhere here, I thought. Infill development, this is the proposed definition, is the new construction of buildings or other facilities on previously unused or unutilized land located within the downtown urban core. So this has to go back to City Council, and there was a discussion that they wanted the historic district to discuss this.
So
and
I have a quick question about that. Do they have an actual infill development application already for the planning board?
no, there's
So
no.
this is still in development, because obviously if this passes, they don't even have the application ready for it.
That would just be, planning would just make an application.
Okay.
It would be similar to the historic district application.
So I have a question. How does this work currently as we sit now? I know that developers have somehow gone to the planning board and then we don't see them until it's approved. This sounds like they have to come to us first. Is that what I'm understanding?
They would come to the historic district first, and the historic district would make a recommendation to the planning board on any changes to the application. The planning board would be the one that has the ultimate authority on whether to take those into consideration.
So in other words, on the one hand, it's good because they're coming to us first instead of going to planning board and then coming from planning board to here with like, here's the project planning board approved. But on the other hand, right now, we yea or nay it and they have to go to ZBA if they don't like it, and we lose that option.
I would think you're correct with the last assumption. Based on what I read here, it's we make recommendations to the planning board, and the planning board can either heed those, modify them, or ignore them, but they approve the building, not us, or deny the building.
It would be
So-
similar to the process set up for the Conservation Commission for conditional use permits. Any conditional use permit has to goes before the Conservation Commission for a recommendation. And Planning Board, there's only been one application where the Planning Board has not sided with the Conservation Commission and taken up their recommendations. So
But they wouldn't
that
have
would
to.
be, they wouldn't have, yeah.
But on the other hand, the benefit of this is that, again, some of the frustration with what I've been seeing since I'm on this board is that planning board approves it, and then we see it secondarily, and we're like, okay, we can't talk about the size, or we can't talk about things because planning board has already approved it. So I like the idea that we're seeing this, that we see them first.
They would come here and we would give them our input, and then they would digest that and make decisions on their own, but they would have our input prior.
I have to agree. I like the idea of there being an order to which board they see first, but I also feel we lose some say at the same time because it's really up to the planning board whether they
It would be up to
follow
the
or not.
planning board.
So I don't know that I have a clear answer on how I feel about this yet, but I'm skeptical.
Well, so then it says that the Historic District Commission shall have 35 days after the HDC accepts the application is complete to make comments, which is us, to the planning board. It says comments or recommendations from the HDC shall require a majority vote. So in other words, if we don't agree, then nothing moves forward.
It's not that nothing moves forward, it's that the application would move forward without a recommendation from this board. So if this board is split, very similar to what we just ran into, we wouldn't have a clear, concise thing to bring to planning.
If it was,
And we can't hold
Split
up the
evenly, yeah, we'd
application
be-
if we don't meet within the
have no say.
35 days, is what that is saying. Like, it has to flow through like a normal application process, but if this board cannot come to a consensus, it cannot hold up the application until it does. It just doesn't have a recommendation then.
Right, but it also is very, very clear that we lose our, with regard to infill, we lose our veto power, which we currently have, and they have to go to ZBA, and then I can go speak at ZBA.
we no longer would have the ability for yay, nay.
And the only time it goes to the ZBA is if there's an appeal, like if they're just unhappy with it, they,
Well, but we've lost,
We always-
we lost that.
I think there's only been 2 times that something's gone to the ZBA in the 10 or so years that I've been here, so it is a rare occasion that that happens.
So how do we make who do we make comments? Do we go speak at the next meeting? Who do we make comments to?
So I assume we can make a comment to the planning board
There will be a public
hearing.
meeting, a
Yeah,
public
so yes,
hearing
the public
about
hearing.
this.
at the next city council meeting, presumably.
No, it's not, the public hearing has not been scheduled yet because this was not brought forward yet.
It had
I
a
mean-
fir-
I mean-
It had a first reading,
It-
so usually that means the next meeting
But
has
they
a pub-
held it before to schedule the public hearing, so it hasn't gone to that part, and you need to have that before it can
There
move
may not be a
forward.
public hearing at the next one.
I don't believe so because, I mean, I could be wrong, it could. I don't think they are looking to have a public hearing at the next meeting. I think they were waiting to have comment.
I agree.
Okay, so can someone tell me when the opportunity is to go make logical comments?
The next city council meeting, which is, hold on.
I mean, you can come to regular city council even if it's not the public hearing, but the most precise time to speak about this would be the public hearing.
Yeah, which may not be at the next council meeting, it may be at the one following that, which would be later, the 3rd week of June, I believe, would be 3rd Monday.
It's the first and third, right?
Yeah, 1st and 3rd Mondays are when city council meets, so they've got one coming up, I believe, would be next week. Which, right now, it sounds like there may not be a public hearing, but you could certainly still speak to it then, just under
Public comment.
public comment.
Yes, the next city council is on the 2nd, and then the next one would be the 16th. There's only those 2 in
And
June.
just another thought on this is, we also have the Historic District Advisory Committee, which we've been meeting a number of times. We've actually set some goals, have some ideas in motion, but nothing concrete yet. And that was really formed a lot, mainly because of how 85 Elm Street progressed, hoping to come up with changes. We've discussed some changes, some ideas, again, nothing concrete yet, but this almost seems like it belongs there as well, because this was a change to the Historic District. It's a proposal for a change to the Historic District and its process, let's say.
Well,
So-
one of the sponsors is on that advisory committee.
Yes, Mr. Girding, right? Yeah, so,
I have a question for the planner as well. And you said this was reviewed by the city attorney. Are you familiar that if the attorney absorbed Senate Bill 188 in comparison to what that, if signed, which is ought to pass, it passed House, and it passed Senate, probably be approaching the governor's desk, that may change these timelines to much shorter than these 30 days.
Really? Okay.
So,
Yeah, it would be updated once that, we're gonna have a lot of updates to
yeah.
happen.
SB 188 had large ramifications for a number of things. So, anyway, and it may affect the timelines of how long you wait versus, there are some provisions in there that it's a matter of days versus 30 days, just 5 days or 10 days.
Well, if that passes, they would have to restructure our HDC guide.
I know.
they're probably gonna restructure a lot of stuff, not just
It's gonna
HTC.
restructure boatloads of stuff around the state.
Accessory dwelling units, detached, There's a
So
lot
that
of
would mean
changes.
we'd have to have like 2 meetings a month or 3 meetings a month in order to make sure these things went through.
We'll cross those bridges when they happen. We don't know the governor's gonna sign it either, so we don't know. The odds are, it looks like it will be signed. I testified at the House Committee on that bill a few weeks ago, and we submitted a revision draft from the Building Code Review Board was there, as well as the New Hampshire Building Officials Association, and we actually, not me, but others in that group, drafted an entire amendment to that bill, and they accepted all of it as we rewrote it. We weren't supporting 188, but if it was going to pass, how can we at least make it palatable? And if they at least do this kind of thing, okay, it's like and they took it, and that's the bill they're proposing to move forward to that was voted on. I know it came out of committee. I don't know if it was voted on at the Senate, at the House yet. Might have been this week. Then it goes on to the governor.
So to go kind of back, just for clarity, Richard, normally when something like this comes forward, council will want our chair of this committee to come and speak at the public hearing at council to give where this board is sitting on this. So do you feel like you've gotten what people of this board are feeling? And then other members can go talk to council, but they would not do it as an HDC representative. They would do it as a representative of a city resident. So I wanted that to be clear, because we can't have the whole board going up and talking as board members. We should come to a consensus so Richard can represent that for us, because that's the job of the chair.
And we've taken that position on other things. I think you were chair at that time, yeah.
So there's also 2 parts to this. The first part, just to cover both aspects of this, talks about the map that is the historic district. It's not, it's a map, but it's not official definition of the boundary of the historic district. Instead, when you follow the historic district boundary word for word, lot line by lot line, there's an actual definition. I've sat through and did this several years ago when we were looking at the boundary and so on. There are certainly some areas where they don't quite match the map, and it's kind of a gray area, or just wrong numbers. Can be very confusing. So this is looking to say that the map is the official boundary instead of the actual wording. And I would certainly agree with that half of this, in my opinion.
I don't have an issue with that. I'm a little concerned about construct and alter, because when you amend chapter 19, activities requiring review, it says striking construct. So that means you can construct something, but you can't alter it. And I would actually, if I was being lawyer, would say adding construct and saying construct or altering. Why are we getting rid of one and not keeping both?
And I would also point out that if a building is torn down, they are now constructing something. So now it's not just infill.
Right.
It could be the replacement of buildings would
Right.
also fall into this.
Right, and that's
So,
concerning to me. So I have an issue
But I
with-
will still point out that demolition is not considered part of that. That would still go to this board. Keep that in mind.
True. Any other members want to comment, or? So-
George, you've been very quiet.
Waiting.
So from what it sounds, I would assume that the board is concerned with this.
You
Maybe
would
not
assume
in
correctly.
favor, maybe not in favor of it.
Not in favor of 1914 as written, concerned about amending to get rid of construct. I think we need both languages in there.
This really edifies that this is really just, we would then, in this case for infill, we would be an advisory committee,
Right, I don't like that
plain and
idea.
simple.
Don't like that idea. That was, I feel like that's an end run rather
And
than
then
actually add.
as a consensus of what we meet as a committee in that respect, would have a representative express the findings of that committee.
Would it be fair to ask the Historic District Advisory Committee to discuss this at an upcoming meeting
I
as
think
well?
that would
Because
be fair, but
that would
we-
also get 3 counselors and 3 HDC members together to discuss this as well.
That's fine. I think that that's fair. I still don't understand why I somehow ended up not on that committee, but apparently I ended up not on that committee. I went to a bunch of the things, but I ended up not on that committee.
Yeah, it's me, Laura, and Tim that are on it. And then Gibson, Michaud, and
Matt,
Matt. Thought there was a,
So
There
I,
was
the
another
mayor.
member who never attended and was taken off.
I feel like you
Okay.
guys should discuss it, but I don't want it to pass through the
Goodwin's on it
city
also.
city council without some statements from us.
Well, again, any of us can go up and speak as an individual resident, so we can all
Okay.
do that. But
Happy to do it.
if I get up and speak, I get to speak for the board as if I'm doing it as an HDC chair, so.
One last item, we do have camp on June 7th, on Saturday. So looking forward to that. We have 14 people signed up. So if you have
Plus
not
one.
signed, oh, good.
no, less.
Plus one? Oh, you can't?
I've been called away to something called a yellow ribbon ceremony, where when airmen and soldiers return from deployment, they have a ceremonial debriefing. And my son has returned from deployment, and it is on that day in Massachusetts somewhere. So he asked me to go with him, and of course I said yes.
We'll have the PowerPoint presentation for you.
So I did sign up, and I have to renege.
Okay.
Would it
Thank you.
be okay to attend and leave early because
Yes,
I have
that's
to
fine.
leave by 3 o'clock? Okay.
So I have one question if we're still doing thoughts and comments by visitors or comments by people. Does anyone know what happened to the trees up, I don't know what the street is. It is up at the top of the hill. We approved a retaining wall change. There's some construction going on, and there were some giant maples that got taken down, like giant maples that got taken down. And I don't know if maybe PSNH took them down, but I don't think that's what happened. And they were giant. We approved, is it Grand Street?
It's a new construction?
No, it's an old,
Was it the building that's being turned into condos and they had the
Yes.
retaining wall that they were
Yes.
moving?
yes,
So it's between Emery and Noble?
yes. And they took down 2 really good-sized trees, like beautiful, very old. And I just saw the stumps and went, oh, wow, those trees are gone. And I don't know who,
They ought to put them back.
okay. I don't know if they can put them back, but I think there should be, like, those were really huge shade trees.
Word rise, yeah.
I don't think it's where the condos are going. I think it's the next house over, but it's very, very close. If you notice it, where the condos were going in is the driveway, and then
Right.
So I think I'm hearing a request to have code enforcement look into it.
Yes, please. It was 2 you can see the stumps, 2 very large maple trees are gone on that side of the street. Well over 16 inches, probably closer to 30 inches in diameter.
are we into communications and miscellaneous yet?
I believe so. You have something?
I got a couple things, yes. So much for being quiet. 118 High Street, the old black and white. I'm just kind of wondering what's going on there. They've got a 8-foot fence there all the way around the property. No permits, no thing come before us.
I can only offer what state laws changed to no longer require permits for fences under 8 feet. And and also within new state law, remove the ability for municipalities to create ordinances contrary to that law
Really? So I can 8-foot fence my house all the way around.
without a permit.
Nice.
But that's not to say that it doesn't require different board approvals, like maybe it's a wetlands issue or historic district issue, but it wouldn't require a building permit.
It just looks like a Wild West Army fort around it. It's just,
It took, the new rule, I believe, took place in June, or the end of June, of less past June, removing the ability for deleting all municipal ordinances that pertain to the building code. Unless those municipalities were to submit application to the Building Code Review Board for individual changes or amendments to that. And according to Bill Sherman, who's the president of the Building Code Review Board, no municipalities have submitted that have been approved. So, and in a different bill that's going through this, that's gone through the House already, and into the Senate with the tag ought to pass, is a bill removing even that ability. There will be no more ordinance changes to the building code at all, ever. So if it's in the building code, it's good, but we can't say in this town, we want to have permits for fences, ain't gonna happen.
Wait, does that mean we can't fix our zoning problem where we have like 12 zones down to 3? We can no longer.
I only can speak to the building code.
Building code would be like insulation requirements, stud size, the actual building structure.
An example would be, the building code is now ordinances, Somersworth requires a permit for a shed or any deck. That's used to. It's no longer valid because the building code has a certain square footage of a deck under a certain height, certain square foot, doesn't need a permit. You can just build it. Same with sheds of a certain site, you can just build it. No longer a permit required.
Somebody's gonna litigate that, probably starting with P.
So it's coming on 1 year, I believe, and it's then soon to pass will be even the ability to submit your own municipal amendments to that code. You're not going to allow amendments to it at all. Right now, currently, there is that ability, but it has to be processed through the Building Code Review Board for their approval. And if they like it, then it becomes an ordinance again. But if it ought to pass with a new Senate bill, that's you're not going to have that ability. So it's to create a uniform building code statewide, no city amendments. It's the same in Dover as it's going to be in Colebrook. It don't matter.
Well, that's gonna be painful.
I don't want to say what it sounds like, but, okay.
And the driving factor was the Home Builders Association.
Live free or die.
My other thing is the S building downtown. Is there anything we can't do anything about that, can
What
we?
building?
S building?
It's part of GE,
Demolition
the
by
S
neglect.
building, but I believe code enforcement has started going to Aclara on some of their stuff, correct me if I'm incorrect on this. So hopefully we will get some movement, but you're correct, except for code enforcement citing them, there's nothing we can do. We lost our ability of demolition by
Really hate
neglect.
to see that building go.
I believe the roof is probably in the
Of
basement right
curved,
now.
arch.
Between the big mill building and
Chinburg,
Field G.
La Clara, right in the middle.
Yeah, it is looking rough. I was looking at that the other day.
All right.
Boy, I hate
Any
to
other
see it go.
communications or miscellaneous?
Yeah.
Just a real quick one. Tim and I attended a conference that was put on by the state it was a planning conference, but they did have a historic preservation section in the morning. I thought it was very insightful. I don't know what Tim's thoughts were.
I was told to stop asking questions.
It was talking about additions, infill, different things, and it asked quite a few people's opinions of, would you have approved this, would you have not approved this? One thing that I found was very interesting was that there was a community they highlighted that actually had people mimicking. And so you couldn't tell the difference between a new construction and an old construction, which I particularly didn't like. So I know when we're going to be looking at our ordinances, the PDF is extremely large. I was going to send it to everybody to have you guys be able to see the examples. So I don't know if I'll be able to, but if I can find a link to it, I will try to share. Because I think it was very insightful to see the differences of how different places had ordinance changes and how they were interpreted. So that
It was
just-
interesting. I attended 100% of it. I did ask, I'm not sure if there was anyone else that made comments or questions throughout by the time, but I asked a lot of questions and pointed out some things that they were not aware of with certain laws that they were trying to say. But it was great. It was cordial and it was well represented. They were very knowledgeable. And there was a few of the cross examples, what's about this or this? And it had me confused in one of them. I was like, oh, I like that. Nope, we wouldn't have allowed that. It's like, that kind of thing. So it was enlightening.
Anything else? Do we have a second? Second. All those in favor of adjournment, raise your right hand. Motion passes. We're adjourned. Yeah, with one opposed.